Hello and welcome back. In the last section, we looked at wiring up the landing page with our layout framework, and we were partly successful and partly not so successful. The reason I say that is because we are passing the content as landing page here, and it was not showing up here on the main page, right? So right now it's pretty static in nature. It is not being dynamic. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that if you look back to our reference app, our reference app has a landing page which has a kind of title here, okay? And we need to pass that title to the layout component, okay? So whenever we actually render the landing page, we need to pass that title. So let's head over to the layout function here. I will go ahead and open this, and I'm actually taking the props here. We need to pass a prop of, let's pass a prop of title. And in here, I'm going to say title, and I'll copy the same title here. It'll say savor our delicacies. Okay, super. And let's say what happens now. Even now, nothing is happening. Okay, fact is, we are getting the props here all right, but we are not passing the same thing over to our main function, right? Which essentially renders our app, our main content, which is coming in this area, right? The landing page main content. So it's not able to render that. So how do we go about that? So in here, I also need to go ahead and say inside of layout, I'll go ahead and say, I'll create a new prop here. Let's say title, okay? And I will fetch that from props.title. Okay, let's see if it actually helps here. And what we can also do here is we can do a console log here of props.title. Maybe that might help. Right? So instead of props here, we need to essentially have the props in here. That was another mistake. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and console log the props.title. Okay, super. So let's see if I'm actually able to see that in the console logs. I'll go over to the console log. Yes, I can see that here. This was actually main.js, right? And this is actually on line 12. So we are getting the props down to the main component here. So let's go ahead and make sure we use that right now. Okay. So in here, what I'm going to do is I will have a h2 tag, and I'll say inside of main I want to have another class of, let's say, container before I even go ahead and print that prop. So let's have a container class here. So I'm going to say container, and this is going to be container hyphen fluid. We have a container fluid class here, which essentially allows us to take the entire width of the page. And in here, I'll have an h2 tag, and that will display the title. Okay, and I will say I'll print the title by taking it from the props. Let's see if it actually ends up in some change here. Okay, super. Now we are actually getting the title in here. Okay, so because we wired up all the way from, let's say, the landing page, we are passing this title. We are initiating our layout component with the title prop, and that's again flowing down from the layout to the main component. Okay, and the main component then is actually rendering that. And if you look back to the landing page, we also have some content here which also needs to flow down, because ultimately this is the content of the landing page, right? This has to show up here when we eventually build up the whole entire landing page. That has to show up too. So why is this not essentially being carried over? Okay, so what needs to happen right now is these are essentially the children of the layout component. So when inside the layout component, we can access the children by the property called props.children. So what we can do here is I'm going to say console log props.children. Let's see if it actually gives us something. I'll go ahead and let me also clear the console here. You can also come back to desktop mode if you will. Let me save this. Super. This is actually showing up here in 20 on line number 20. This is the props.children on layout page, and we can pass this along to the main as well. Okay. So we need to pass this along to the main as well, because ultimately the main class is the one which is rendering all our content, the dynamic content. Okay, so if you look back at main right now, which is right here, it is right now rendering the title alone. It's not rendering any dynamic content. So how do we access the dynamic content here? In the same way that we access the title, we can also access the children, right? So how do we go ahead and make sure the main function, the main component gets the children? Okay, so for that, what we have to do is we need to make sure we have a closing element here for main. Okay, and I'll say I'll close it with the closing tag, and inside here I'll make sure, just like I access the props.title here, I will go ahead and access the props.children. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say props.children. Let me go ahead and get rid of this. All right, and let's see, and then yeah, even with doing this, it doesn't do anything right now because we're not making use of the children here in the main. Okay, so let's go ahead and say we want to access the props.children right here. Okay, right after the H2 title, I want to access the children by saying I want to access the children by using the props and accessing the children property. Super. Now that you're getting the landing page here, this is dynamic right now. Okay, you are creating a landing page component using the layout structure, and you're passing some component or content in here, which is essentially rendered on our main area. All right, so this shows that we have the component nicely wired up to the main component. So this is nice, and we can also make a few more refactorings here, but I guess we'll wait until the right time comes, because right now we're accessing properties here. We can actually go and access the individual properties here. Another thing I want to show you is, if we go back to our reference app, the background is different here. But right now, our main.js does not essentially make sure that it caters to different backgrounds. Right now, it only has a background of main, which gives us a background of this color. So how do we go about that? So the way to do that is we can have additional props being passed to a landing page component, which then passes down the path of the layout. So let's go ahead and define a new prop for layout, and I'm going to be passing that here. That is called background. Let me collapse this again for the lack of better space. I'm saying background is equal to, say, background is equal to true. We need a background which is different from this, right? So then when we go inside, okay, if you want to, okay, so let's go ahead and say, it's saying if you want to write it to DOM as a string is equal to true, or write it not string. But we'll ignore this error for now. It's just a receive true for a non-boolean attribute background. Okay, no problem. So I'm sorry, this is not where it should be. I apologize. This is not where it should be. I should be having this background true in sorry about that. It's going to be in the landing page. I need to pass it here because the landing page is the one which requires the background. Okay, super. So now with this in place, this is actually calling the layout with the background now. And we also need to make sure that we pass it down the path of main. Okay, so let's head over to layout.js, and when we call the main, we'll also pass the background. All right, and this is going to have props.background. Okay, Super. And if you go inside here now, we should be able to, let's say, console log this one now, right? Inside of main. Yes, it gets console logged here, right? So now that we are getting a flag of background is equal to true, we should be able to essentially change the class name here based on that particular flag. So let's see how we can go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do here now is we have too many flags right now, and instead of referring properties like this, we could do a couple of things. One is, let's say we can restructure them. So let's say const children, okay, is equal to props, and we can also say background, and the other one is title. Okay, let's see if we can get this. Oops, it's not going to be here, it's outside of this. Sorry about that. It is going to be outside of the render main. Alright, and in here now we can essentially need not have to prefix it with props. Same here and same here as well. Let's see if that happens. So we are good here. Excellent. What else can we do? So we have a background here right now, and inside of render main right now we need a little bit of conditional logic, so we cannot use the concise syntax anymore. So we will go ahead and then go back to the other form of syntax, which is using the curly braces. Okay, so go ahead and use the curly braces, and I will also go ahead and have the return statement here, and make sure I will wrap the JSX block inside the return statement. Alright, super. I think this should still work even after this change. And inside of render main, I'm going to define a new constant on a new variable, and I'm going to call that CSS class. Okay, so I'll say let CSS class. I'm going to hardcode this, default it to a main class, right, which is what we're using here. Okay, and in case the background is true, I want to make sure the CSS class is different. Check if background is true. What I'm going to do is CSS class is going to be, not so fast, CSS class is going to be, I'm going to provide a different class now. It is going to be main hyphen background. So which means we have to make sure we actually provide a dynamic class here, which is referred to by CSS class variable. So far so good, right? But we don't have the main background right now. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and build the main background class inside of main.css. Let's head over to main.css. I'm going to go ahead and open this. I'll collapse the sidebar. So we already have a class, CSS class for the main. And now we're going to go ahead and have another class for the main background, right? This is going to be a kind of having most of the attributes of this class, but it will essentially also have a few different attributes and as well. Okay, so I'll copy a portion of what's going to be common between these two, okay, up to the padding, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have a background here. All right, and that background, should I need the padding? So with the background, so we're going to have a background here, right? So what I'm going to do is background, we'll need a background, and that's going to be a URL to an image, and the image we need to have, I think we already have the images folder here. So if we go back here right now, we have an assets and images folder here, and inside of that I'll be accessing this particular background. So let's go ahead and collapse this again. I'll refer to that URL, and I'll say go one level above, and another level above. Where are the assets? Okay, there we go, three steps above, and I'll go ahead and need the images, and I will this particular background here. Let's see what happens now. All right, so you're already getting a background here. Super. but it's not looking so pretty, so I'm going to add a few more attributes. All right, and that's going to be background position, and that's going to be centered. Super. And we also need a background size, okay, and that's going to be of cover. Okay, we have multiple options here. I'll use the cover option and let's see what it shows. Super, this is what we wanted. So right now we have a background which is rendered conditionally based on how the content, a particular content, wants to be rendered. Okay, so this is looking great, guys. This is great progress. All right, and I think we also have another option here for background URL. Let's see if I can leverage that. I think there's something like no repeat. Let's see if that actually helps. Not really. No repeat didn't help. Actually, it was not center, but just no repeat. No, that didn't help. Okay, so I think we'll just stick to the conventional option, the regular option, the bare bones one. So this is great progress, guys. I think we have done quite a bit of work here in terms of essentially, let's see what happens in mobile mode. Okay, I think this is looking pretty nice right now. All right. Yeah. And this one also shows up. Yeah, I think we thought we actually gave a color to this. Not sure why this is showing up. We'll probably take a look at that in the next lecture. We actually gave it a green background and a white color, foreground color. Apparently that's not showing up. We'll take a look at that in the next lecture. Okay, guys, this is nice progress. We'll come back and design the rest of the landing page. And essentially, it'll be another couple of lectures before we complete this. So let's take a break here, come back soon, and finish the rest of the design aspects of the landing page.